Killer, Episode 44, Breakdown. It's all right. Bog had a pair of cutters, but sensing the desperation, and because I couldn't tell him why, he assumed it was for criminal purposes. Naturally, he wanted more than $20. I had another $40 with me, and he said the list of supplies would be bigger on our next run. But he gave me the cutters, and I made my way back. I approached the gate of V's new place and let myself in, made my way to the camper and down the ladder. The woman still lay there as she had been, but there was no sign of V. V, I yelled out, concerned, as I climbed back up the ladder, skipping rungs as I climbed. No sound of her. I began searching around the trailer, then the yard. She couldn't have left, I thought to myself. The gate was locked. This is when I spotted the red blanket under the picnic table. V, I said, approaching the table. She didn't respond, but I knew the blanket wasn't holding itself up. V, it's me, Ray. Are you okay? I asked. Why are you under the table? She still didn't respond, so I reached to touch what I thought was her leg. She appeared to be curled in a ball. She whispered back, almost inaudible. Go away. It's Ray, V. It's just me, I whispered back, matching her tone. Go away, she whispered again. Why? I asked. Did something happen? Go away, she whispered again, but with more assertiveness. Did you find a camera? I whispered back. Silence. If you tell me where it is, I'll go destroy it, I whispered to her. There was a long, quiet pause. Go get it and shove it up your ass, she whispered. I sighed. At least that's a hint. I went inside and gathered a few blankets, taking my time so she could sit for a moment. I brought them back out and laid them over the picnic table so that both ends are covered. V, I whispered. I made a fort. Can you do me a favor and peek around to see if any light is getting in? I sat quiet for a moment, expecting her to look around but not say anything. Is there any light? I whispered again. No, she whispered back. Do you see any cameras in there? I whispered to her. Another pause before she whispered back, no. I'm going to sit on top so that I can make sure no one approaches from the back, okay? I whispered to her, climbing on top. Really, I just wanted to sit after that hike to Boggs and back. She didn't reply, but I knew she could spread out a little while feeling safe in the fort. What happened while I was gone? I whispered. No response. You're in charge, I whispered to her. I repeated it a few more times, pausing a few minutes in between, getting a little louder each time. I don't quite understand what happens to her when she gets like this, but I've learned that this can usually bring her back. Fast, I hoped. My stomach growled, and I needed water. I'm in charge. I heard her whisper back. Now I was making some ground. You're in charge, I said back at a normal tone. She echoed it back to me. What are you going to do? I asked next. No response. You're in charge. What are you going to do? I followed up. I'm going to kill her, she responded. I was shocked at this response, but still had to be tactical about the words I would choose next. In front of the camera? I asked. No, they'll like that. I can't do that. I wondered for a moment if she knew she was talking to me, or if she thought this was a conversation in her head. The camera will see you if you kill her there, so you can't kill her, I replied. I wondered if I should offer to do it, then sneak her out somehow. But I didn't want to feed too much into her delusion. I like to think bringing her back to reality at the end makes her better in some way. Maybe she's already dead, I asked, or will die on her own? She's not dead, V replied. Can't you hear her? No, I can't hear her. What is she doing? I replied. She's yelling. You can't hear that? V said higher pitched. No, I can't. What is she yelling? I asked. She keeps yelling, we can still see you, V replied. Do you think she can see you in your fort? I whispered to her again. She paused to consider. She's lying. She can't, she replied back. I whispered back, you're in charge. I'm in charge, she said back. Hey, V, I whispered again. Huh? If she is yelling, how can you hear me whispering? I whispered back. A long pause came. She's not yelling, she replied, after making her mind up about it. I smiled. She was coming back now. Are you ready to tell me what happened? I asked. She proceeded to tell me the story at length. The way she told these experiences, I could never tell how much of it was true. The woman hadn't looked like she had moved at all. Whatever it is, it always seems to happen when she's stressed out. I was dumb to think that the episode during our last run would be all that came from it. I should have known finding the woman would make it worse. After thinking longer, I decided I can't blame myself for not knowing how to stop it. I just needed to be what she needs when it does. Once she came out of the fort, she was back in reality again. I still had to prove there was no camera, but she was past the stage in which she'd accuse me of being a part of whatever it is. I decided it was best to not mention the bolt cutters now. I left V in the camper and climbed down to verify the woman was still asleep. While she had not moved an inch, she did appear to have more life in her. Her color was coming back, and she was breathing steadily. She looked more like a woman sleeping than one on the brink of death. I poured a little more water into her mouth, and her body seemed to drink even though she didn't respond. I left some water open next to her if she did come to. I climbed back up. "Ready to go cook dinner?" I asked V. She nodded. She still seemed dissociative. I feel like if I asked her if she was ready to go trick-or-treating, she would nod the same way. I grabbed some food supplies that would make for an okay meal and walked her out, locking her gate behind her. She followed me quietly back to her other house, and I instructed her on what to gather up. Then I told her to go inside and get ready. She gathered up her blankets and made her usual pile on the ground and curled up like a cat. I wish I knew the words that would make it all better for her. She stayed pretty quiet all night. I noticed Denny chose not to sit by her, but kept looking over, concerned, reading that something was different. When people asked her if she was okay, she just nodded. She ate and even looked over and smiled at me in that sweet way. She was back, but vulnerable. When she started to shiver, I tucked her into bed at her old house, locked her in. We all continued to chat and relax for a few more hours. She had a long day. I would explain when they asked. Episode 45, Unlocked. At dawn, I went back to V's hut to let her out. V was already awake, pouting. She looked like a stray at the Humane Society waiting in her kennel. I held up the bolt cutters, and her demeanor changed from boredom and mild irritation to joy. I unlocked her fence, and she came bounding out, now with the enthusiasm of a puppy on adoption day. She rambled with excitement about getting the woman out of the basement. She spoke enthusiastically about hoping she will be awake when we go there. "Hey, Ray," she turned to ask me, "how did I end up here last night? Were we drinking?" I didn't know if I should avail her with the entire story or let it slide by. "You needed food and sleep. I thought you'd be better back home for the night," I replied. I decided what was most important was getting the woman out of the basement, both for her safety and for V's sanity. "I feel a lot better," V responded, staring in front of her. I wondered if she was remembering. This was by far the worst episode I've seen her have. Where she's normally skeptical and calculating, today she seemed so trusting, if not infantile. I feel like if I told her she changed her name last night, she would believe it and take on the new name. We made it to the RV. She waited patiently as I unlocked it. Should I have handed her her keys? Didn't matter. She's defaulting to me, and I'm going to use it to buff this situation out. We got downstairs, and to our surprise, the woman had moved. She had definitely rolled herself over, pulling her knees to her chest and pulled the blanket up over herself. If the smell was any indication, she also urinated again. We approached slowly at first. "Are you awake?" V asked. "You're safe now," she said quietly. She repeated it a few times as we approached. The woman didn't stir. We pulled out the bolt cutters, and after a struggle, we managed to wedge and put our weight on the bar, cutting the padlock that shackled the chain around her ankle. She was free. But I have the new challenge of not being able to let V be alone with her again. I jumped up and down in celebration. I don't know what I expected, but for some reason I felt like the second the padlock was off that she would be jumping for joy with us. But she still lay there. Ray looked at me and smiled. He was not as relieved as I was. The tension was still tight on his face. "We're gonna have to get her out of here. I think if we tie her to my back, you can help push from below as I climb up the ladder," Ray said. I ran up the ladder and found some sheets. Ray pulled her arm over his shoulder and began to pull her onto his back. I pushed her on the rest of the way as he stood on all fours on the ground with her sprawled on his back. He then instructed me where to loop and where to tie the sheet around her so that he felt like it was secure. It took some work getting him to his feet, and even more work getting him up the ladder. But we were successful. He wanted to take her to his house, but I refused. I didn't want anyone to see her coming out of my place unconscious. He insisted, but I begged. He laid her on the couch. We sat there a while. I missed the cool air from below. I now regretted bringing her up. But just then she started to move and wobble. Ray started giving her water. Over the next hour, she kept doing little movements and opening her eyes. She kept drinking the water. She might make a recovery. Maybe we should see if the TV works? I asked Ray, standing up. He nodded at me, catching her hand as she nearly slapped her face. I began reading the sides of the USB drives. V, I heard faintly. I looked around, but Ray hadn't said anything. Olivia, I heard it again and looked outside. Oh shit, Denny's here, I said to Ray. I ducked, which was stupid. The windows are tinted. Ray stood up to look out. My mind raced. Maybe he wasn't pulling away. Why did he have to come now? I'll stay with her. Go talk to him, Ray said. No, I can't. He'll want to come in. I shrieked back. I'm going to blow it if I act weird. Then tell him what's happening, Ray responded. He's going to think I kidnapped her, I replied. Why would he think that? Ray asked. I saw his look when Anna told him about Marty's face. He's avoided me since. He thinks I'm nuts, I replied. Oh, shit, Ray said, remembering their earlier conversation, unbeknownst to me. You go. Tell him I'm sick or something, I followed up. Ray nodded, got up, and went out the door. I watched from the window as he opened the gate. He and Denny talked for a few minutes as he gestured toward the back of the RV. Then they both came in. I panicked. I threw a blanket over the woman. She was slowly moving her mouth and bobbing back and forth. She continued moving under the blanket. I ran to the back of the RV. Ray stepped in and yelled, V, we're going to take the carts and haul the rest of your stuff here. I froze. I didn't respond. I didn't even know what he meant. Everything there was stuff I planned to leave. The door shut before I could respond. I peeked out the window again, and they left. I went back to find the girl still moving under the blanket. I pulled it off. She was red and sweaty. She was moving even more now, though, rocking back and forth, her hands up and twisting in weird motions. She reminded me of this woman from when I was in the psych ward. I began to wonder if Marty had kidnapped a disabled woman. I put on a movie. They had been gone for hours. I assumed Ray found another way to distract him. I pulled out my phone and sent him an update. He probably wouldn't see it, though. My mom had texted too. Honey, I love you, and I hope you're safe. She was trying to pull me in again. They have her do this every now and again. I grumbled, then turned my phone back off and wrapped it back up. Suddenly, the woman stood up and screamed. You're safe, I yelled over her. It didn't stop her. She bolted out the door screaming. You're safe, I yelled again. She made it halfway to the gate and wasn't slowing. Stop, I yelled. She stopped. Not a pause, not a slow down. She came to a full, solid stop. You're safe now. Marty is dead, I said, approaching her. Her eyes turned to look at me, wide and in terror.